When you are in the container aisle of the dollar store, pick up a couple of white wire shelves. Flip one shelf upside down and lay the second shelf on top, overlapping about a third of the shelf. Now take some zip ties and connect the shelves together. Be sure to pull tight on the zip ties so the shelves are securely tied to each other. Remove the rubber tips from the ends of the shelves. Grab each arm on the shelves and bend them from their 90-degree angle to about a 45-degree angle. Next, give the entire shelf unit a coat of spray paint. This is the perfect shelf caddy for holding rolled up hand towels and washcloths. Grab a short glass container with a screw-on lid. Take a large marble and glue it to the center of the lid. Next, spray paint both the glass container and the screw-on lid. To style your new jar, take a small wood cutting board from the kitchen and use it as a tray to hold the jar and other beauty products. Head to the garden section, grab one of their metal French garden buckets. Give the entire bucket several light coats of overspray with some white spray paint. Take a black paint pen. Once you get a feel for how much pressure to apply, start to outline the bottom rim of the bucket with the paint pen. Let that dry, and then start to outline the lettering on the bucket. Once the letters have dried, outline the top rim of the bucket. Next, take some old drawer knobs and glue the knob to the bottom of the bucket. Style on a bathroom counter beside a sink by filling with hand soap and paper hand towels.
When I saw the bottle of mouthwash on the countertop, I knew this was the perfect way to add a little luxury to my bathroom and get rid of that ugly mouthwash bottle. Next up, I decided to stamp my toilet paper rolls. First, I want to run the tap a little bit so there's just some water left over that I'm going to use. Then I just touch the area near the tip to the tap, and the water will make a beautiful seal. As it dries, it keeps the folded paper in place and makes everything look so much nicer. Finally, I want to do something with the towels. To fold the large ones, I lay them flat, then I want to fold the sides over towards the middle. I then need to simply fold it in half, and then I can place it over the bar. If I want something a little different though, I can lay the towel face down, and before I fold in the sides, I want to make an extra fold to the side I want showing. This is going to create a little pocket when I turn it over and fold the towel in half. I'm going to slip the smaller towel right over the larger ones, and then I'm going to slip a few of these flower stems into the pocket.
Bathrooms can become disheveled and disorganized, but today I'm going to be sharing with you some of my top bathroom hacks. So first up, bar of soap gets very messy on the counter. So I'm going to take my soap dish and I'm going to fill it with some river rocks that I got at my local dollar store. Next up, I'm going to show you a cute way to dress up your toilet paper roll. So you're going to rip off one sheet and then two sheets that are attached together. And then you're going to take the end and you're going to just fold it into a triangle. So this is the very end piece that's still attached to our roll. And you can see here I've just folded it under. Then you're going to go ahead and you're going to just very gently poke two holes. And then you're going to go ahead and with the one square that you ripped off, you're just going to fold it into a little roll here. And then with the two pieces that are still attached together, you're going to fold them over each other, and then you're going to use your fingers to pinch them down into the middle, and you're going to make a bow shape. Then you're going to take the piece that you took off and rolled up, and you're going to wrap it around to make a bow, and you're just going to slide it through those two holes that you ripped into the toilet paper, and then wrap it around the back. Another sore spot in the bathroom is hand towels, so I just fold the towel over 2 times, and then I'm going to flip it over, and then I'm going to fold it the other way vertically. So I'm going to take these ends and I'm just going to fold them into the middle on each side, and then once I've done that, I'm going to fold the towel in half, and then what you'll see here is that I have a neat little pocket here, and then I can lay this over my towel rack. Now for my washcloth, I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to fold it in half, and then I'm going to fold it accordion style, and then this is going to make a nice little fan that's going to sit in the pocket. If you want to roll your washcloths like they do at a spa, I'm going to show you how to do that now. So you start with a square washcloth and you grab 2 of the pointy ends and you fold them into the middle, and then you flip it over and just fold it back 3/4 of the way, and then begin to roll your washcloth. And then when you'll see here, you have a little pocket here that you can tuck the tail into, and this holds them nice and tight.
Grab some 2x2s to increase your bathroom storage in a few easy steps. I cut 4 2x2s to 6 feet each and cut 6 to 19 inches, and I cut another 6 to 4 inches each. I sanded all the boards, then used my Craig jig to drill pocket holes in each side of the smallest 2x2. I secured the 4-inch boards to the 19-inch boards with pocket screws and wood glue, and used a countersink bit to pre-drill the long 2x2 to the rectangle frame. I filled the screw holes with wood filler on the front side only and sanded the excess off smooth once dry. I wiped, cleaned, and painted the frame. While that was drying, I sanded cedar 1x6 boards, ripped them down to size, and sealed them with 2 coats of polyurethane. I used a brad nailer to secure the cedar boards to the top of each rectangle base and slid the shelf over my toilet.
I found this door on Facebook Marketplace and it was finally time to put it to use. The first step was to remove my existing bathroom door. After measuring my new door, I purchased a 1x8 to act as my header. We leveled it off and bolted it to 4 studs. Securing the track was easy as the barn door kit I ordered from Amazon came with everything I needed. After the track was hung, we drilled 4 holes into the top of the door, attached the hanging brackets, and secured them with the included bolts. To finish it off, I added some privacy cling film since this is a bathroom after all. This was super easy to use as it bonds to glass with just water.
I wanted to give this wall behind a toilet a feature without spending money. We'd recently changed the flooring and I had 1 box of luxury vinyl plank flooring left over. I started with the first plank at the top of the wall. I made sure it was level. I continued attaching pieces and securing them with the nail gun. At the bottom, I cut the plank so that it wouldn't interfere with the water line. The wall was looking great, but I needed to work on the trim pieces at the end. Since there were leftover materials lying around, I bought some L brackets and attached them to the 1x4 pieces. I then set these where I wanted them on the wall, made sure they were level, and attached them. I ran down to the hardware store and picked up 2 sheets of beadboard. Then I measured and cut the beadboard down to size using a table saw. I attached it to the wall with my nail gun. It took no time at all. The next step was to add a wood border to the top. I used very inexpensive common board. Then I painted the top of it before attaching it to the wall. When I attached the board, there was a small gap between the wood and beadboard, but it was easy to fill this gap using paintable caulking. Once that dried, I got started with painting. In order to finish off my beadboard accent, I added hooks.
So I went to the dollar store and I bought 3 bags of those vase filler gems. After sorting them, I washed them off using Blue Dawn and water and then laid them out to dry. I drew lines from the edge of the vanity to meet the mirror line. I applied a thin coat of mastic using a small notched trowel. Then the fun began as I pressed the gems into the mastic. I worked in small sections so the mastic wouldn't dry too quickly. Once I was done, I mixed the grout. I mixed 1 cup of grout to a half a cup of water. I applied the grout in small sections, making sure I was pushing it between each of the gems. I wanted to make sure that every spot was filled in between them. After 1 hour, I checked again, and yep, it was nice and dry. Using a large spun and plain water, I washed away all of the excess grout. I removed the painter's tape that I had placed on the top of the vanity and applied caulk, smoothing it out with my finger.
Pick up a couple of bins and these barnwood boards at Walmart. These boards are already prepped and ready to go. We just need to remove the twine from the back. Now I want to add a little detail to this. So I'm going to use just a paper number stencil, and I'm going to add a stenciled number to the top of each board. To the bottom, I want to add a little knob. Now, if you're using thicker wood, you can absolutely drill a hole and use the screw that comes with these knobs. Since this is very thin wood, I'm just going to use some super glue to attach it. Now I want to place the board on the bin. The bin doesn't sit completely flat against the board, so I'm using some thick Gorilla mounting tape on the clear bin, and then I'm going to press the board on there really well. You can either set something heavy on top of this or use clamps to hold it in place for about 30 minutes until it cures. And I'm going to hide some craft supplies that don't really fit anywhere else. I have this beautiful clean look on the outside, and I can easily access everything I need when I pull these out.
Do you have an ugly spot in your home where all your routers live, and do you want to hide this eyesore? Well then, start by taking measurements of the space and then go out and find a basket that fits the dimensions. I found one that had wooden slats all around it with space in between. This kind of basket is perfect because you can easily slide your power cords through the slats of the basket. Once finished, we place the basket back where all of our ugly routers once lived. And now, instead of seeing them, you're seeing a pretty basket instead. I love this easy and simple hack for hiding your routers from plain sight.
You won't believe what I did to this thrifted board game. I mixed half a cup boiling water with 1 to 2 tablespoons dye and brushed it onto a linen-covered book box, making sure to cover the exposed linen, including the inside edge. I let them dry completely, making sure to flip several times throughout the drying process to encourage them to dry evenly. In the meantime, I created a board game cover design using Cricut Design Space. I tried a few different designs but found that the very simple ones worked best for adhering to the linen fabric. I used the Cricut to cut the design out on heat transfer vinyl and ironed it to the front cover and spine of the book box. I placed the contents of the board game into the new beautiful book box, and now I have the most aesthetically pleasing board game boxes.
The work table in my office has a lot of space underneath for storage, but it is really ugly to look at. So I found a $10 solution to cover up this mess. So I'm measuring the front of the desk, height and width. I'm laying out the foam board, and I'm going to cut it down to fit the desk. This board cuts easily with a box cutter or a craft knife. To hold these pieces together, I'm using clear packing tape on both sides of the seams for a really strong hold. Now I want to cover the front of this large piece with marble shelf liner. This shelf liner comes in a ton of different patterns at Dollar Tree. You can also get it on Amazon, so you can get something that matches your decor. Starting in the top corner, I'm leaving a bit of an overlap on the top and the side so that I can fold it under, creating a really nice looking edge. I grabbed a craft scraper for this project. A credit card works really well too. Slowly pull the backing off the sticky shelf liner while pressing down on the marbled part. This will ensure you have a really smooth look without any bubbles or wrinkles. I used almost 4 rolls for this project, using the same technique for each roll, slightly overlapping them in between. Now to attach this to my desk, I want to use some Velcro. I picked this up at Dollar Tree as well. You could use command hooks or even a more permanent adhesive. I like that with the Velcro, I'm able to pull this off if I ever need to get in there. Now I have a clean looking desk. I'm still able to store all my things underneath, but I don't have to look at the mess, and neither does anybody else that comes into my office. I'm showing you how to turn an old book from the thrift store or your own bookshelf into a genius decorating hack. The first thing we need to do is remove some of the pages from this book. So I'm going to use 2 really simple supplies. I am grabbing a ruler and my craft knife. I want to remove about 1/3 of the pages from this book, and I want to have nice clean edges. So I'm just going to slice a straight line all the way down right next to the seam and pull out the pages. But we are going to antique the outside of this book. I'm grabbing some black paint and I'm just going to brush over the silver lettering on the spine of this book. Then to give it a little age, I'm coming back in with a sponge brush and some gray paint on the spine of the book and the cover. These are the portions that are going to be seen. With all that paint dry, I'm adding one final touch with a really thin paintbrush and some gold paint. Okay, the book is all done. I am going to use this to hide my Wi-Fi router. Now, a router is really important. We want it to do its job, but it's not always pretty to look at. So by hollowing out a portion of this book, I can slide my router right inside. The antenna can still stick up on the back, meaning it's going to work perfect, but it's going to look a little bit nicer. I'm just styling this with a couple other books and a faux plant. This was such a simple hack. Grab a book off your bookshelf at a rummage sale, at a thrift store, and I hope you try this at home.
So I ran down to Home Depot to grab some decorative trim. What we want to do is cover the frame of the TV. Your key to this is to turn all your miter saws to 45 degrees. That's going to be every cut that you make. Start with your first cut right on the end at 45 degrees, and then you're going to measure right from the inside cut all the way down the length of the TV. That's where your next miter cut is going to be. Turn the saw to the other way and give it another 45 degree cut. Once you get that cut, you're going to go ahead and match it to the next part. That way you don't have to use a tape measure, and you can get the top and bottom frame the exact same size. Just use a pin to mark it out and cut it. Once you get all 4 pieces cut, lay it out, make sure it's all smooth and ready to go. But the secret to this is you gotta have glue. That's gonna hold all the pieces together. Now, just don't lay out a bead. You wanna smooth it out so it has as much adhesion as possible. As the glue is laid out, just go ahead and put it right up next to it and make sure you get those nice smooth lines. Next, you gotta get some flat corner braces. That's what's gonna hold these frames together. Just mark out the holes, but you gotta be careful. We need to pre-drill all the holes. That way the screws hold inside this MDF wood as easy as possible. Once you pre-drill, the screws go in without a drill. You can just use a regular old screwdriver to put them in. Make sure you get it nice and tight, but don't over tighten. We just want to make sure it's snug and it's holding in place. These corner braces do a great job holding it together. Once you get all 4 sides, we got to build a box. That way we can cover the sides of the TV. I use a little bit of 1x4, and again, you got to use that glue. It holds the sides together. Again, we're going to use 45-degree cuts, and look how smooth that is. You can use screws or nails, but I go ahead and use a brad nailer. It's real easy to use, and it puts a nice fine fastener right inside. I just use 3 on the side, and it gives it a nice smooth look. Now, again, we're going to go with the glue. We got to put it all the way around the box frame we just built because we're going to lay the frame on top. If you measured right and did good and took your time, it's going to fit just right. The last thing you need to do on this is use the brad nailer again and put just a few brad nails to hold it together. Once you get those in, let's cover up them nail holes with a little bit of spackle. Just let that dry and sand it clean. Now it's time for some gold paint. Any type will work, but as you can see, it's going to take a couple of coats. I did put 3 coats on here. Let them dry about half an hour in between coats. The next thing we got to do is we got to put a little bit of Velcro on the TV. That's going to hold the frame in place once we install it. It just looks amazing. When you're not watching TV, you've got your own portrait.
For this project, I'm going to start with 3 cutting boards that are average size and width that I picked up at my local dollar store. The first thing I want to do for my project is paint my boards. I love the green on these boards, but they're a little too yellowy for what I want them for, so I'm just going to give them a coat of milk paint. You want to make sure that you do inside the handle if you have a handle, and you want to make sure that you do both sides. I'm not going to worry about it being too opaque because I don't mind if I see some of the wood grain through the paint. I can even take a cloth and wipe a little bit of that back if I want it to be a little bit more of a whitewashed effect. Now that the paint is dry on all 3 of my cutting boards, I'm going to take my sandpaper and I just want to rough up the edge a little bit. I love the look of aged things, so I want to give this just a little bit of that aged feel. To finish off my board before I assemble this, I'm going to use some hemp oil. And hemp oil is food grade safe, but it also makes a wonderful coating for your milk paint or chalk paint. I'm just going to put some on a rag and I'm just going to rub this all over. Even though I won't be eating off of these cutting boards, I do want to protect the paint that I've put on them. And I will just go ahead and rub this on all sides of each of the boards. With all 3 of the boards sanded and oiled, it's ready to assemble my boards together. Now they're going to feel a little oily at first, but that oil will dry up nicely in the next couple of days. So to assemble the boards, I want to work with the back of each of the boards. So I'm going to turn them over here. And I want to make sure that they are all nice and level so that the bottoms are all in the right spot together. And what I'm going to do is take some of these reclaimed hinges that I have. And if you don't have any that you've used before, you can always pick these up at the hardware store. And they're just little piano hinges here. And you want to make sure that this little raised part is on the inside. You don't want to put it in between your boards because it's going to create too much of a gap. And I will measure these out in just a second. So I'm going to make sure, now I have some lines on my board So I can use those as a way to line up my boards here. And I'm just going to put these about an inch or so from the top of my line there and an inch or so from the bottom of my line here. Once I have my hinges in place, it's time to add some screws to hold them permanently where they are. So I'm just going to put these in. So I'm going to start by attaching just the 4 at the bottom and then making sure that I have this exactly level down below before I attach all the rest of the screws. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure that that is level. And that is perfect. So I'm going to attach the rest of my screws, and you can see that I've split my wood here a little bit, and that's okay. Once you see the outside, you really don't notice that. And also, I don't mind that. I actually love the more beat up and worn things look. Now that my boards are together, I can slip them into place and cover up this cluttered corner of my kitchen counter. They slide into place so easily, they can be moved easily, and now I can conceal all of that stuff in this corner.
First, grab 4 paper towel holders. We are tying 2 paper towel holders together with cable ties. To create a stem, we are wrapping rope around the middle piece. Do the same with the 2 remaining paper towel holders. This cute lemon sign is going to be the base. Tape off the frame and remove the raised lemons before painting the center green. Use hot glue to cover the 2 painted craft foam balls with fern leaves. Add a few tiny daisies on top of those leaves. Glue a piece of floral foam to one end of the taller stem. After cutting the stems of these big white flowers shorter, we stick them into the floral foam to form a ball. Now we can glue all 3 of our stems to the base. Place pieces of moss around the stems and fill the rest of the tray.
I picked up 2 of these paper towel holders from the Dollar Tree. So I'm going to turn one upside down, and I am going to zip tie these together really tightly. So here we are. And I'm just going to cut these off. I'm going to paint my whole thing gold. I bought these 4" by 4" photo frames from the Dollar Tree that have gold glitter around them. And then I bought these mirrors that are 4" by 4". I am going to hot glue them. I'm going to take and glue these to one another and take out all of the little easels that hold up the picture frames. What I'm going to do is put my glue gun on low temperature, and I am going to stick this piece of styrofoam on top of this piece of styrofoam. We're going to take our paper towel holder that we have painted, and we're going to push that right down in there. I'm going to add a bead of hot glue, and then I'm going to secure it with some S-pins. I have some acrylic crystal drops and some very fine wire, and I'm going to feed some of these acrylic crystal drops onto my wire. And you're going to hang them right on the top part of your paper towel holders, and you're just going to twist that. I have almost a 7-inch craft foam. Slide it right over top. I'm going to add a bead of low temperature hot glue and some S-pins. I'm just going to take each individual little floret off of them using low temp glue. I'm going to add just a little bit of glue, and I'm going to start covering my styrofoam ball. And what I need to do now is decorate this bottom part right here.
Grab 2 paper towel holders and some faux flowers from the Dollar Tree. Press a foam block down into one of the paper towel holders. Flip the other paper towel holder over and press it into the foam block again. Attach the 2 paper towel holders with some floral wire or some zip ties. Cut the large stems from the faux flowers and start placing the flowers all over the foam block. Grab another foam block and repeat this process. Finish this easy centerpiece by hanging some faux crystals for some extra glam. Hot glue that foam block on top of the paper towel holder.
let's head over to Dollar Tree and we're going to grab a paper towel holder. Let's all run down to the hardware store and grab us a wood round. Gotta sand the edges, got to condition the wood. Let it dry about 30 minutes to an hour. Once it dries, it's time to put on some stain. We're going to get 3 of those paper towel holders and we're going to set them in place. What we need to do is paint them. Once we get it all painted, let it dry. Now we got to curve the edges a little bit and bend them. Don't bend them too far, just get them a little 20 degrees and we're going to do all 3 at the same angle. Now we're going to put them in place on the bottom of our wood round. And I'm going to take these little electric hooks that I got out of the hardware store and I'm going to put 4 all the way around each side of these circles here. And once I got them marked, I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill. I'm going to go ahead and put little tiny screws in and hold these clips in place. And I'm going to put a little dab of hot glue. And then I'm going to take some twine. I'm going to set it there and then I'm going to start wrapping it all the way around.
Next time you're at Dollar Tree, scoop up some of the white wire baskets and grab yourself a paper towel holder. Then I'm going to take the paper towel holder and place it on the bottom and then cut out the wire basket just in the middle. You're going to slide it over top and then you're going to secure it in place with some zip ties at the bottom. You're next going to take your second wire basket and cut out the middle. You're going to place it on your paper towel holder and then you're going to place some zip ties around the paper towel holder to give it a little bit of a ledge to sit on. Then you're going to come in with some E6000 and then you can spray paint it your favorite color.
Head to your local Dollar Tree to start by hot gluing the paper towel holder in the center of one pan. Hot glue rope starting from the outer edge and work your way in. And work your way up the center of the paper towel holder until reaching the top. Take twine and baskets and wrap, tie, and secure them on either side of the paper towel holder center. Take the second round pan and pour marbles into it. Place the top pan and the baskets on top. Head to Dollar Tree and pick up plastic storage drawers, hot glue them together, and then attach each stack to each other from the side. Take wood cubes and hot glue them under the drawers. Take 4 mirrors and hot glue them to the sides and the top. Add beads. Take 4 more mirrors. Take paint stir sticks and hot glue them to the backs of the mirrors to attach them all together. And glue nautical rope to the edges. Add the mirrors to the upper portion of a paper towel holder and then place the holder back under the drawers.
Head on over to the dollar store and grab some paper towel holders. I grabbed a paper towel holder and I placed it onto the command hook. I grabbed my hats and slid it onto the paper towel holder. I started with dollar store adhesive and spread it on the bottom of my pencil holders. I grabbed some fishing line and I wove it through each of the pencil holders and tied it into place. I grabbed some silverware, placed them into each of the pencil holders. I started by grabbing a sign from the dollar store. I grabbed some adhesive and I spread it around the base of a paper towel holder. Next, I placed them onto the board together and I let this set. I grabbed a hanger and slid it onto the paper towel tubes.
You'll need 4 of these chrome napkin holders, a paper towel holder, a set of these plastic chopping boards. First thing is to trace the napkin holder onto the chopping board 4 times and then cut out the half circles. I'm attaching those pieces of the plastic chopping board to the side of the napkin holder. I'm going to take these napkin holders and glue them to the bottom of the paper towel holder. Attach 2 more toward the top of the paper towel holder. Once the glue is all dry, for a little added security, I'm going to use some zip ties.
Take a clear adhesive hook from Dollar Tree and a paper towel holder. Add toilet paper rolls and you have easy and inexpensive toilet paper storage. Place scrunchies and hair ties over the top and you have an easy and cheap storage solution. Loop the zip ties around the paper towel stand, evenly spaced and secure in place. Take scissors and cut off the excess of the zip tie. Use a mini hot glue gun to add little dots of hot glue to make sure the zip ties stay in place. Cover the entire stand with gold spray paint.
Let's head back over to the dollar store and grab some of this chalkboard paint. One of those paper towel holders. You're going to also need a plastic tray. We can go and flip over our plate. Now we're going to take some glue and put it on the back and stick our paper towel holder onto here. After it has dried, we can take this outside. I'm going to be using some of this looking glass spray again. I'm taking chalkboard paint and this is going to give it a lot of texture when I go over this with the second layer.
Grab one of these 3-drawer bins from Walmart and we are going to dress this up. I picked up some half-round pieces of wood and I need to cut them down to roughly 4.5 inches each. Now it's time to attach them to the drawers. I want to cover the front of the drawer to give this kind of a natural boho look. I picked up a multi-surface glue, so this is going to work really well on wood and plastic, and it dries clear. So I'm just going to put a dab of glue on each piece of wood and put them all the way across the drawer. Now that everything's dry, I'm going to take this outside and add a coat of spray paint. I'm opting for a real neutral beige color, and I'm going to cover the front of the drawer and the wood. I opted to leave the rest of the drawer set white. I really like the contrast between the beige and the white, and I think these drawers look so good. It is such an upgrade from the basic drawer set that I had originally.
Let's run on down to Walmart, and it's time to grab your favorite inexpensive bucket. We got to get those handles off. We don't need those. Take them off both sides. They clip right off. Next, we're going to take that bucket and flip it over. We need to set in 2 strips of wood that are going to fit right on the edge. Just go ahead and set it down there. No need for a tape measure, and just mark it with a pencil. What you're going to need is definitely 2 of these. Just use your favorite saw. It's easy to do. Next, stick them on there. Make sure they fit just right inside the grooves. Then you can use some hot glue. Just 3 good dabs on the edge will do it. Just flip it over and press it against the plastic. Now I know what you're thinking. This glue does not hold permanently. That's okay. We just needed to hold until we can flip it back over. So do that to both pieces right on the edge and just hold it down till it sets. Takes about 20 seconds. Next, flip the bucket over, and what you're going to do is grab just some small little screws. They don't need to be long. We don't want them to pop out through the end of the wood. So just take your drill and put it right in. 2 or 3 in each strip of wood will be just right. Just put it in there, don't over tighten, and that's going to hold it in place. Now it's time to put on the wheels. I got these little inexpensive caster wheels, but I need the drill bit to be just the right size, and we're going to mark it 1 inch from each side of the wood. We're going to put 4 of these legs on. So once you get them marked, let's go ahead and we're going to drill it. You can just drill all the way through the plastic. It's not going to be a problem because when we set the leg in, it's going to block the hole. So these little wheels are perfect. Now it's time to take that hot glue, put it right on the edge of the hole there, and put the leg on. It's going to hold it just great. Now, if you don't want to use hot glue and you want a little different glue, go ahead. It'll work also. Just let it set up. I like using hot glue because it's fast. Once we get the legs in, look at this. They are excellent. Exactly what we need. Now it's time to go ahead and decorate the bucket. I grabbed this twine over at Dollar Tree. Just take again our favorite hot glue, put it right on the edge. This is our starter piece. Just stick it right on there. You want to make sure this first row is perfect. I use the edge of this bucket right on this line, and that's going to be what I call my datum line. Just go ahead and set it all the way around, and we're going to go around the whole bucket. Once you get that on, it's time to take a little bit of your inexpensive fabric, cut about 12 inches wide. We're going to use that hot glue again, and we're going to fold over the edge. That's going to give us a nice edge to finish this off. What I did was I just worked my way down with that hot glue and kept folding it over. Be careful because it can get a little hot. Once we get both edges nice and done, what we're going to do is fold it over the bucket. It's going to cover all that plastic. Get that glue right on that last bit of rope right there. Spread it over and just mark it down right there. We're going to take this all the way around the bucket, and look at this. This is going to be a great container. We can store books, dog toys, or even toys for the grandkids. It turned out great.
Grab a plastic bin from Walmart for this project. I'm going to start by drilling a few holes into the side of the bin. This is going to be for handles down the road. Then I'm going to flip the bin over and I'm going to drill 4 holes, 1 in each corner of the plastic bin. I want to dress this bin up, so I picked up some gray and white patterned fabric, and I've cut it down to size so that it is the right height of the bin. Now I'm going to use some spray adhesive to adhere the fabric to the plastic. When I get to the corners, I am going to cut up the side, and then I can just fold these 2 pieces over each other, creating a really nice looking seam. To add the handles, I'm going to locate the hole that I drilled with my finger and then just poke through the fabric with a pair of scissors. Now I can thread the jute through and tie a knot on the inside to secure it in place. Now I'm going to add some feet to the bottom to raise this up off the ground and just make it look a little nicer. And there you have it. I have a really nice looking bin that I can keep out in the open. It looks so much better than your basic plastic bin, and I can store all kinds of stuff in here.
I have this storage container and I'd love to use it for my office supplies, but I really don't want to see what's inside. I'm starting by giving the container a quick sanding so that the surface is a little rougher. To make the outside look a little better, I want to add some clay designs before I do anything else. I always dust my molds with cornstarch before adding the air dry clay so that it releases easily when I'm done. I'm just going to keep adding clay until the mold is slightly overfilled. To remove the excess clay, I'm going to take an old ruler and just run it from the middle of the design to the outside edge. Now it's time to release the clay. Look at that beautiful flower and all those details. For right now, I'm just going to lay the clay where I want it. I've gone ahead and made some more impressions, and I'm going to lay them all out on the side of the container. Now that I've decided where I want the impressions, I'm using some tacky glue to stick them in place. Once they're all glued, I'm just going to leave this to dry overnight. With the clay stuck in place and dry, it's time to paint them. I've chosen a silver spray paint for the first coat. This is going to cover the clear container and provide a really nice background. Now that the silver spray paint is dry, it's time to give the container a beautiful faux stone look. I'm using stone spray. It's a textured spray with different shades of beiges to give the look of stone. The trick with this spray is to do a lot of light coats. Each coat has to dry, and then the next extra coat will help to build up that faux stone. I think this box and the texture are so fun. I love that what's inside is hidden now as well. The next time you're at the dollar store, grab one of these inexpensive plastic bins and give it a farmhouse makeover. I want to give this storage piece a farmhouse feel, so I headed to my paint supplies and grabbed some sandpaper and white paint. Before painting the bin though, I want to make sure that the surface is roughed up a bit, so I'm going to give it a quick sanding with some medium grit sandpaper. Now that the bin is ready, I'm going to give it a coat of white paint. I'm not going to go and paint the inside of the bin because I actually like the gray and it'll match the dresser next to where it will be. To create the farmhouse look that I want, I'm going to add some faux wood grain. I'm using a chip brush because of its uneven bristles and some brown glaze. Only a little bit of the glaze is needed on the brush, and then I just lightly sweep it across the surface. This creates the faux wood, and I can even create some faux knots with the glaze as well. If I want to soften up the lines, just this damp paper towel is all that I need. Once I've finished all the sides with the glaze and the faux wood grain, I'm going to leave it to dry overnight. Now that the paint and glaze are completely dry, I want to fancy up the handles a little bit. I've grabbed some of this thick twine and I'm going to wrap it around each one. I'm going to use a little dab of hot glue to hold each of the ends in place. I love the rustic touch the twine gives to the bin. I love how pretty this plastic bin looks now. You wouldn't even know it's the same one. A little bit of paint and it was easy to do.
What I did was I laid out some cardboard, spray painted it a couple of times to make both boards the exact same length. You're gonna take your first hula hoop that's already painted, and you're gonna set it on top of the boards. Then what we're gonna do is drill through all four corners here. You're gonna put one of your hooks in with it. Make sure it's facing up and you'll screw it through it. We're gonna do the same thing over here. Now what we're gonna do is turn it around and do the other side. We're gonna take a little bit of dab of glue right next to the screw, take the rope and just gently wrap it around the loop.
Do you love burning jar candles, but don't know what to do with the wood lid? Spray paint a wood candle jar lid with white spray paint and let it dry completely. Flip the lid over and place it on top of a paper napkin. Trace around the perimeter of the jar lid with a pencil and then cut out the circle. Separate the layers of the napkin. Brush a layer of decoupage glue onto the top of your painted and dry wood jar lid. Brush another layer of decoupage glue over the top of the napkin.
So I'm going to start this project with a empty marinara jar. I'm bringing out Mod Podge and I'm taking food coloring and putting the food coloring into the Mod Podge. I'm essentially mixing it all together to turn it into kind of a murky brownish green color. I'm getting out a cookie sheet and some newspaper, pouring the mixture, the Mod Podge mixture, into the jar, and I'm spinning the jar to try and get as much coverage on the interior of the jar as I can. I'm going to set my jar upside down, allow it to kind of dry and kind of let the excess drain out. The jars sit for about an hour. We're gonna take all of our bottles and we're gonna make sure that they're top side up, and we're gonna bake these at 225 for about 45 minutes to 65 minutes. And as you can see, each of them kind of has a different tint, so you can really play around with the colors when you're mixing up your Mod Podge. We're starting with a toilet paper roll, and we are going to cut it down to about half this size. So I'm going to be taking an X-Acto blade. I essentially want to create like a flat piece, and I'm going to go around the inside. I want it to kind of fall here. And so I'm just going to continue to add glue around the surface. So I'm going to take a big heap of this, and we're going to just start layering it on. So we're going to do essentially the same thing, but I'm going to start by over the exposed base of the toilet paper roll. So I let this dry for about 24 hours. I have a sanding block. All right, now that we've sanded this down, we're gonna wipe it off.
Take 2 woven tissue boxes and some round puck lights with a remote control. Glue the bottom of a puck light to the inside of a tissue box so it is centered over the hole. Run some hot glue around the top of one of the tissue boxes. Flip the other tissue box upside down and attach it to the glued top of the other box. Hang your new sconce on the wall.
You want to pick up 2 bowls. Make sure they are ceramic or glass and that they are heat proof. I took them home and I'm going to give them a coat of spray paint. Once the paint is dry, these bowls have a really nice textured look. I'm just going to use some really strong glue to adhere them together. In the top bowl, I am going to add 3 wicks. I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue to secure them to the bottom. Then I'm going to grab 2 wooden skewers and wrap the wick around the skewers. This is just going to hold everything in place. Great way to make your own candles is to reuse existing candle wax. I have a couple of these Dollar Tree tall pillar candles, and I'm going to place them in some boiling water. Now make sure you're wearing gloves. These can get really hot, and I'm just going to gently boil this until all the wax is melted. Pour the wax from all the candles into a metal container with a handle. I'm opting to add a little essential oil for some scent, and now we're just going to pour that melted wax. Then you're going to want to walk away for about 24 hours. When it is completely set, you can trim the wicks down and use your candle.
Spray paint the lid in a favorite color. Once the painted jar lid is completely dry, wipe off the top surface with some rubbing alcohol and let it air dry. Order a monogram sticker, place the monogram face down on the candle jar lid, and rub multiple times over the top of the sticker with the credit card edge.
Quick trip to my local Dollarama, separate the layers, cut the napkin so that you have enough to cover the body of the jar. Now I'm using some clear glue mixed with a tiny amount of water, paint it onto the side of the glass jar, then lay down the paper napkin, and then using a piece of scrunched up plastic wrap, use that to pat down the napkin and eliminate any wrinkles that way. Draw around the lid because that will be the right size, and cut out the piece of napkin, stick it to the bottom of the jar in the same way. Using the same process, cut out a circle for the top and a little strip for the edge and stick it in place. When it was dry, I decided to give it 2 coats of a gloss varnish. I have taken a battery operated puck light and stuck it into the lid of the glass jar.
I grabbed a corrugated cardboard box and a tin can from my recycling for this elegant home decor. I cut the cardboard about a 1/4 inch taller than the tin can. I wet a tea towel and pressed it onto the top of the cardboard to make it damp, not wet. This helped to loosen it so I could pull the top layer off and expose the corrugated part. Then I flipped it over and painted the top 1/2 inch and top edge antique white using acrylic paint. I flipped it back and painted the whole corrugated surface in antique white, and then I started blending with the other colors. I used a sponge to add black, gray, and I spray painted some silver for a metallic touch. I added more antique white on top and blended it all together using my paintbrush. Once dried, I wrapped it around the tin can, hot glued it together.
Start to paint your pots and saucers with a matte finish paint or chalk paint. Take a paper napkin and separate the 2-ply layers. Draw a circle and cut it out with scissors. Take the saucer and brush the decoupage glue so the bottom and sides of the saucer are covered. Place the paper napkin circle and press down in the center and smooth the napkin out. Dip a small paintbrush in water and brush along the top of the saucer. Add a final layer of decoupage glue. Take a strong adhesive glue and place a ring of glue. Place the saucer on top of the bottom of the pot.
On one of my most recent trips to Dollar Tree, I came across these glass bowls, and as well I spotted these cool margarita glasses. I'm going to take some E6000 and I'm going to spread it around on the bottom of the margarita glass. And then I'm also going to apply some E6000 on the bottom of one of the glass bowls. Then I'm going to place it on top. I'm going to leave this to set. In the meantime, I'm going to take my second glass bowl and I'm going to take some E6000 and I'm going to take an old drawer pull and then place that on top. Next time you're at Dollar Tree, grab one of these square clear plastic containers, a round garden dish, and some of these silver and white plates from the wedding aisle. And then I also had these wooden candle holders. I'm going to use a little bit of E6000 to secure them into place, and then I'm going to let this securely set. I'm also going to take the round garden dish and I'm going to glue that with the E6000 on top of the candle holders. Once it's dry, I took this appliance epoxy spray paint and I gave it a good coat. Then I'm going to take my plastic plate and I'm going to glue it to the front using the E6000. And then I'm going to give the whole thing a spray with this gray chalk paint. And then I'm going to come in just with some gray acrylic paint. I'm going to give it some texture on the sides, as well as working in some black to give it a little bit of definition. Metallic spray paint, and I also sprayed the garden dish on the top. And then I came in with some white paint and I just dry brushed it on. I decided for the bottom part I wanted to add a little bit of a bright color, so I used this dune grass from Country Chic paint and I lightly patted over top. I next came in with this metallic paint. I did end up taking the plate off the front part because it was easier to work with. Then I took some Mod Podge and I printed off a vintage scale face and I Mod Podged that into the middle of the plate. Then I took this and glued it back onto the front part.
I completely transformed this thrifted lampshade into the most beautiful home decor. I removed the shade so it was just the wire frame. I used a utility knife to scrape off the glue. Then I sanded the wire frame with sandpaper and steel wool. I wiped clean and then spray painted it matte black. While it was drying, I sanded a wood round, wiped it clean, and sealed it with gloss spray Varathane. I applied 5 coats and then sprayed the last coat with satin Varathane. I pre-drilled and screwed the wire frame and wood round together.
Time to run down to your local baker and grab a big old container of cookies. But even though those cookies are yummy, what we want is that decorative lid. We're going to measure it straight across and get about 10 inches. Lay out some cardboard and we're going to pick a bowl that's round for us to mark. Just go ahead and lay it on the cardboard and take a marking pen and get you that perfect circle. Now it's time to mix up our cement. Once we get it mixed, carefully lay it inside the bucket. You can see the consistency here is like some really good pudding. Now, once you get the right amount in, you're going to go ahead and just shake it all up. Cut some strips of wood. This one is going to be full 10 inches across and the other ones are going to be 4 each. And then glue up the ends, lay it out and fold it in. We want to make sure that all the pieces of the wood fit inside the circle. Take some popsicle sticks and some hot glue. You're going to lay this across the top. This is going to be our clamp that is going to hold the pieces together while that wood glue dries. Flip it over. We're going to do the other side also. Once you get these pieces on, it's so strong, it's time to go ahead and drill them because we want to put these caster legs on there. All we need to do is take some hot glue, put it in, and all 4 wheels go right in there. Now it's time to take those wood and the wheels and we're going to just shake it back and forth, let it sink right into the concrete. Let it dry for about 24 hours. Go ahead and turn it back over after that 24 hours is up. We're going to use a knife and we're going to start cutting away the plastic. We need to get some air in there. That's what's going to release our mold from the concrete. Look at that smooth, beautiful concrete. Today's project is going to require some clothespins and a small bucket. The clothespins are easy to take apart. All we have to do is use some hot glue. We're going to do that with multiple amounts all the way around. Now on the bottom, I'll grab some rope from Dollar Tree, put a little bit of hot glue, push it in place. Just keep going all the way around. Now it comes time for staying. Next, we need a wood or plastic hanger. I took a square, put it against the inside edge, and marked 90 degrees. We're actually going to cut on this line. Once we do that, turn your bucket over, and then we're going to hot glue our legs on. If we do 4 of these across from each other, it makes it nice and steady and stable. Put one of those last bits of rope that I have on there, bring it around to the front, and I'm going to tie a knot on it.
I'm going to grab this trash can, take the top off, we'll use that later, and I'm also going to grab a rubber stair tread. Now I'm going to use a really strong adhesive to attach the stair tread or the doormat around the trash can. This is going to need to set to dry for about 24 hours. So I'm using clamps and some twine to hold everything in place. Now that everything is dry, I can remove the clamps and the rope. I want to make this look a little bit antique, so I am using a silver rub and buff. I'm going to put some drainage holes in this, and I am going to use a wood burning tool. I can flip the lid upside down and place it in the top of the trash can. And now I can fill the top with soil and plants.
I scooped up this metal filing cabinet from Facebook Marketplace. I took it out of my van and I put it up on some raised ladders and I removed all the drawers. Then I'm going to come in with this rust paint and I'm going to paint the entire filing cabinet. Then I'm going to use my drill and I'm going to drill in some holes in the bottom. To weight it down, I'm going to be putting in 2 bags of pea stone gravel. Then I'm going to go to my yard and I collected all these old leaves. This is great because I'm going to fill up the bulk of the cabinet with the leaves. So I fill it up till there's about a quarter left at the top, and then I fill that last quarter with my potting mix. Then I'm going to go ahead and plant in my flowers.
Grab tin cans and a napkin for this brilliant porch decor. I washed 3 tin cans from the recycling, removed the labels, and scuffed up the surface with a wire brush. I wiped clean with a cloth and spray painted the outside of each can with Rust-Oleum paint and primer white spray paint. While that was drying, I spray painted some metal chain black. I set that aside to dry. I used a small drill bit to drill 3 holes evenly spaced along the top edge of the tin can. I drilled holes in the same spots at the bottom edge and the same spots again at the very bottom of the tin can. Then I cut the napkins into smaller pieces and cut around the birds. I painted outdoor Mod Podge on the tin can, placed the napkin pieces on, and sealed it with more Mod Podge. I did this for all 3 tin cans, then used a nail to poke through the holes I drilled to make sure the glue didn't close them over. I let the cans dry. 24 hours is ideal.
Look for flowers in a multi-pack that can be split apart. Take your laundry basket and drill several holes in the bottom with a drill. Line the laundry basket with a burlap bag or burlap fabric. Start to fill the burlap-lined laundry basket with potting soil. Fill to about 1 inch from the top of the basket. Cut the excess burlap from the top of the basket with some scissors. Starting with the second row of side basket holes, cut the plastic between 2 holes to create 1 larger hole. Then cut out the burlap from that larger hole to access the dirt. Take one of your plants and plant it in the hole by pushing it into the dirt behind it. It helps to use your other hand to grab the plant as it comes through the hole and press dirt down around it on the inside of the basket. Once you have the sides of your basket planted, you can plant the top.
First, you need to wet your lampshade thoroughly with some water. We mixed together 2 cups of water, 4 drops of dishwashing soap, and 4 cups of cement. I then painted this mixture on the wet lampshade and let it dry completely. Now it's time to make a cement base for the pot. After letting the cement fully dry and cure, we then used a drill to drill in the drainage hole. I added some potting soil.
I ran over to my local Home Depot and grabbed some planters right off the shelf and also grabbed some primer and some textured finish. So we're going to put some glue here right around the edges. We're going to bind this pot right here on top of this base. So we're going to put some weight on this. So clean it all up. For the second part of this, we're going to take this waterproof container right here, flip it over. We're gonna use the second part of our pot. Let's give this about 30 minutes and then we'll combine the two. Just let that set up, and I wanna put on a good coat of primer first, and then we're gonna get to our textured paint.
To get started, we are going to be using spackling. So I'm just taking a simple spackling knife. We're gonna spread it on all over the pot. What we're gonna do next is we're gonna do like a stamping technique using chicken wires. You wanna just kind of press it in all over, and then we're gonna remove it. And you can see here where it's just gonna give it a little bit of almost like a beehive look to it. So we're gonna go ahead and let them dry. I'm using an indoor-outdoor spray paint by Rust-Oleum, and this color is Heirloom White. So now that we have both coats of the spray paint dry, I'm gonna go in and I wanna add some of this multicolor texture by Rust-Oleum.
frame to have some depth, so I picked up the kind of weather stripping that has a double loop to it. I want to make sure they're all a little bit longer than the mirror so that they cover the edges up. And I like to use an old box to make sure that I've got them perfectly cut. To make the weather stripping look more like a pretty frame, I'm going to paint it. Now it's time to adhere the weather stripping to the mirror. The foam has double-sided tape on the back, so all I need to do is peel off the cover strips and I'm ready to stick it into place.
Grab some 2x2s to increase your bathroom storage in a few easy steps. I cut 4 2x2s to 6 feet each and cut 6 to 19 inches, and I cut another 6 to 4 inches each. I sanded all the boards, then used my Craig jig to drill pocket holes in each side of the smallest 2x2. I secured the 4-inch boards to the 19-inch boards with pocket screws and wood glue, and used a countersink bit to pre-drill the long 2x2 to the rectangle frame. I filled the screw holes with wood filler on the front side only and sanded the excess off smooth once dry. I wiped, cleaned, and painted the frame. While that was drying, I sanded cedar 1x6 boards, ripped them down to size, and sealed them with 2 coats of polyurethane. I used a brad nailer to secure the cedar boards to the top of each rectangle base and slid the shelf over my toilet.
I wanted to give this wall behind a toilet a feature without spending money. We'd recently changed the flooring and I had 1 box of luxury vinyl plank flooring left over. I started with the first plank at the top of the wall. I made sure it was level. I continued attaching pieces and securing them with the nail gun. At the bottom, I cut the plank so that it wouldn't interfere with the water line. The wall was looking great, but I needed to work on the trim pieces at the end. Since there were leftover materials lying around, I bought some L brackets and attached them to the 1x4 pieces. I then set these where I wanted them on the wall, made sure they were level, and attached them. I ran down to the hardware store and picked up 2 sheets of beadboard. Then I measured and cut the beadboard down to size using a table saw. I attached it to the wall with my nail gun. It took no time at all. The next step was to add a wood border to the top. I used very inexpensive common board. Then I painted the top of it before attaching it to the wall. When I attached the board, there was a small gap between the wood and beadboard, but it was easy to fill this gap using paintable caulking. Once that dried, I got started with painting. In order to finish off my beadboard accent, I added hooks. I always thought that changing shower fixtures was an impossible thing for me to do. Happily, I was wrong and I was able to update this shower in a day and for just under $100. Remove the shower arm and shower head. The next part was to add the new shower arm. First, I wrapped it with the tape that comes in the kit. This helps it fit snugly. Then I screwed it in as tight as I could by hand. After the arm was in place, it was just a matter of screwing the new shower head in place. To remove the handle, I pried off the little cover using my flathead screwdriver again. Once this is off, the center screw is exposed and can be removed. I used my flathead screwdriver and a razor to remove the plate. Added in the sticky foam gasket piece and then screwed it all into place. The next step was to add the handle, which is secured in place by a screw at the bottom. I turned the spout upside down and there was a little screw there that I loosened with an Allen wrench. I added an adapter for the new spout and then just screwed it into place. The last step was removing the block-off plate, which just involved my flathead screwdriver once again. I'll show you how $35 in tile can transform your bathroom, and it's not in the way you think. I added liquid nails to the backs of the tiles and started mounting them to the mirror. I just added a little bit more liquid nails to the pieces that were going over the clips. Then I added a second row of tiles, and after that I started working my way up the sides of the mirror. Started adding tape as needed. The next day I removed the tape. I purchased some black caulking. I added it along the edges. After I added the caulking, I wiped it away using the lint-free cloth with the mineral spirits. See how one long weekend and a few DIY projects transformed this bathroom. I purchased a 60-inch kitchen sink base. I painted it, applying several coats. I had granite cut for the top. Using leftover vinyl plank flooring, I attached several pieces to the wall, grabbed some trim pieces, I cut these to size, painted them a dark gray that coordinated with the hexagonal tile, and then simply put those on the edges of the vinyl plank accent that I had installed. The only thing left now was the back wall, so the quickest and easiest thing to do was to cover it. The next step was to take some scrap wood pieces, painted them with the same paint again, added some inexpensive brackets, and mounted them to the wall.
So I went to the dollar store and I bought 3 bags of those vase filler gems. After sorting them, I washed them off using Blue Dawn and water and then laid them out to dry. I drew lines from the edge of the vanity to meet the mirror line. I applied a thin coat of mastic using a small notched trowel. Then the fun began as I pressed the gems into the mastic. I worked in small sections so the mastic wouldn't dry too quickly. Once I was done, I mixed the grout. I mixed 1 cup of grout to a half a cup of water. I applied the grout in small sections, making sure I was pushing it between each of the gems. I wanted to make sure that every spot was filled in between them. After 1 hour, I checked again, and yep, it was nice and dry. Using a large spun and plain water, I washed away all of the excess grout. I removed the painter's tape that I had placed on the top of the vanity and applied caulk, smoothing it out with my finger.